his or her mind is fully cultivated, fully developed in wisdom. And that's the one aspect of what does mean fully awakened. Another aspect of the meaning of the fully awakened, in the sense of his or her mind is completely and fully free from the delusions and their seeds, their propensities. Here the delusions, that word mainly refers to these three poisons: attachment, aversion, and ignorance. So when his or her mind is completely free from these three poisons, not just the active, those mental poisons, but also their seeds, their propensities. When these are completely overcome, or when these are completely ceased, then from that angle is also we can say fully awakened. So in Tibetan, sang, that first word is referring to from the aspect of the purification. In other words, that eliminating the what you call the delusions. That literally means increase in the sense of fully cultivated, fully developed love, compassion. And when his or her mind is in that kind of state, in that kind of what you call the mental quality, then that person, he or she or they, we can call Buddha in Sanskrit, or in English, fully awakened being. That being is Buddha or not, the being is fully awakened being or not, is not judged from the external appearances, but judged from the mental qualities. And the mental quality is these two: purifying all the delusions with their propensities and cultivated love and compassion in its full, complete level. So Buddha. And how to take refuge in Buddha, such as the historical Buddha, we take refuge in the historical Buddha, seeing him as one's own spiritual teacher, seeing from your heart, feeling that he is your spiritual teacher. And that is the going for refuge to Buddha. Dharma, in Tibetan, Sangye, Che, that second word, Che. Che, literally it means transformation, change. In Tibetan, Che means transformation or change. So here, Dharma in Sanskrit, or in English, you sometimes translate it saying teachings. And here, teachings, the second refuge object, is not the oral teachings, not those scriptures, but the contents of those oral teachings. And the contents of those oral teachings are in these two levels. The first level is technically they are called 3 higher trainings, or I usually call 3 higher realizations. And 3 higher realizations are concentration, ethics, and wisdom. And that's the one aspect of the Dharma. And when these 3 realizations are cultivated, experienced, within ourselves, then the result is cessation of suffering and the origin of suffering. And that cessation, that is the result. So these two are the Dharma, these two are the main contents of the Buddha's teachings, oral teachings. What the oral teachings do, oral teachings help us to cultivate three realizations, within ourselves. Through the cultivation of three realizations, what we experience individually will experience the cessation of suffering and the origin of suffering. And that is also explained in the teachings. So these two are the Dharma. How to take refuge in Dharma, that means from our heart, from our mind, very sincerely, very genuinely, with the determination and a feeling that wanting to cultivate, wanting to experience, the day by day, week by week, month by month, the year after year, until the cessation of suffering and the origin of suffering is, until that cessation is, experienced by yourself. Take refuge in the Dharma. That means to cultivate, develop, enhance. That is, when we have that kind of mind, when we do that, then we take refuge in Dharma. And that is very important. Sanje Chödam. Tsogi Chok. Tsogi Chok. Tsogi Chok. Tsok means, literally it means community. Chok means, what you call the superior or the higher community. Tsogi Chok. Higher community here refers to the Sangha. Sangha. In Sanskrit, Sangha, that term has that kind of connotation. But also in Tibetan, there's another term to express the Sangha. It says Ge-dun. Ge-dun. Ge-dun, Ge means virtues. Virtues. Dun means, the aspiration. So Sangha, very loosely speaking, Sangha here refers to the people or the individual person who has deep aspiration, strong aspiration towards the virtues, towards the wholesome. And those people are Sangha. Very strictly speaking, Sangha, the third refuge object, refers to the people who have direct realizations of the selflessness. That is, those are the Sangha. Now, how to take refuge in Sangha? How to take refuge in Sangha is this. Again, from our heart, bottom of our heart, so very sincerely, very genuinely feel and act that, to share our experiences, joys, happiness, fulfillment, as well as disappointment, frustrations, and the difficulties while in the spiritual journey, while we are, making progress in the spiritual journey. It's not all the time joy, happiness, fulfillment. Also, it's not all the time difficulties, the frustrations, disappointment, mixture during the process. And those experiences should be shared with the other Sangha members. By sharing them, learn from them, discuss with them, that is the way of going for refuge in Sangha. And that's that kind of mind, understanding the refuge object, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and how to take refuge to these three jewels. Buddha as one's own teacher, Dharma as something, that means, methods to be actualized, to be experienced within oneself, Sangha as a supporter, the friends, spiritual friends, supporter. And that way of interaction, that way of relating to the three jewels is not for one day, not for 1 year, not for 1 decade, or not for 1 lifetime. Sanje chöno soye choknam la. Choknam is the plural, like in English, that plural. Choknam la. La means to them, to sanje chöno soye choknam. Changchuk parato dani gyapsuche. Changchuk means, the enlightenment, or I usually call liberation, the enlightenment, because enlightenment, although this term is now widely used, but my understanding, as I said yesterday, in the West, you have this, philosophy of enlightenment in 18th, 19th century, and there's a little bit, sometimes misunderstanding, people who have that culture, that background, understanding. Now the liberation, Changchuk, the Tibetan term has a very, very good connotation, Changchuk. And also in Sanskrit, Buddha, Changchuk, I think Buddha. So anyway, Chang, almost exactly the same sort of Sang, Chang in Tibetan means, eliminate, purify. Chuk means have, possess. So the eliminate the obscuration, like the Sang, different terms, but similar, almost exactly the same connotation. Chang means purified, eliminate, overcome. Chuk means have, possess, like the earlier Sang, increase. They all are same meaning. So the Changchuk, Pardu means until the liberation. Changchuk, Pardu, Dani Gyapsuche. Da means I take refuge, Gyapsuche. I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I experience liberation, until I experience fully awakened mind. Changchuk Padani, Gyapsuche. Gyapsuche means go for refuge. And these two lines, help us to bring that mind going for refuge, which is very, very, the helpful, useful, and the states of mind to be experienced, to be cultivated. Every now and then, if you have already taken refuge by your own choice, nobody force you, nobody make you to do that, but your own choice. If you have taken refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, then it is very, very useful whenever there is occasion. Not necessarily like this kind of gathering, a special day, but whenever you have occasion and you have time to bring that mind, to remember that mind, to recall that mind. Although to overcome some of our day-to-day difficulties, our everyday difficulties. Computer is not working, the television is not working, and so on and so forth. The toilets are blocked, and so on and so forth. Of course, we must use the means, the methods, the solutions to sort it out. But as far as our long-term difficulty is concerned, the deep-rooted difficulty is concerned, to overcome that deep-rooted difficulty, is concerned, then think the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha are my refuge. And think in here, I'm here, although I'm going to listen, going to study this particular text, which is a very important text, but overall, my participating in the class is make this mind going for refuge, make this mind very strong, deep, profound, and part of my everyday way of thinking, part of my everyday way of experiencing. For that purpose, I'm here to join the class. Think that way. Very, very helpful. That's why here we're talking about, at the beginning of the mind, to have a positive, a constructive mind. These two lines give us, explicitly give us refuge objects, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. How long will take refuge? But these two lines do not give us the why, reason. What is the reason going for refuge? Why we need the refuge? Then that we also need to bring in our minds. The reason we are going for refuge to the three jewels is these three poisons: attachment, aversion, and ignorance. They are, down-rooted, ingrained in our conscious, in our mental state. And due to that, because of their influence, our actions of body, speech and mind are not perfect, not right, not virtuous. And because of that, we experience fears, concerns, worries, suspicions, all those mental difficulties, and with those mental difficulties, we suffer physical, environmental, problems. So that is the reason. That is the reason. But that reason is not mentioned in the two lines, but you have to bring that also when you take refuge to the jewels. Now, next two lines help us to cultivate this very, very important, useful, helpful mental state for the people who want to follow the Bodhisattva path, who want to follow the Mahayana path. But I love to say the Bodhisattva path. Who want to follow the Bodhisattva path in the sense of people who are strongly, who have strong interest in other beings' welfare, other beings' joys, happiness, and fulfillment. People who have that kind of deep interest in other beings' welfare. For those people, their inclination, their the immediate, that's the sign. That's the sign for those people to follow the Bodhisattva path is very, very suitable for their mind, for their spiritual path. So people who want to follow the Bodhisattva path, this second mind, the altruistic awakened mind, in Sanskrit it is called bodhicitta, is very, very crucial to be experienced, to be actualized. And that is the last two lines. Dagi jinso jibe sunamki dola penje sanje dubasho. Dagi, dag means me. Ki, that a verb. By me, literally means by me or by me. Jinso. Jin means the generosity. So means etc. generosity, the ethics, or whatever virtues I have done, I have created, I created Dagi Jinso Jibe, the Dagi. By those virtues, or by those wholesome deeds, may I become fully awakened beings in order to benefit all sentient beings. Dagi Jinso Jibe, the Dagi, Dola Pencher, Dola, Do, literally it means Magarators, or living beings, sentient beings. Dola, for the sake of sentient beings. Pencher means pens, to benefit, to give help and support. Dola Pencher. Sangye Dubasho. Sangye we have seen earlier. Buddha. Dubasho means, literally it means accomplished experience. So in other words, may I become Buddha through my virtues, in order to benefit. Through my virtues, may I become Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. So that is the second, that was usually called bodhicitta. What is happening there? There are two aspirations in that mind, bodhicitta. There are two aspirations. The first aspiration is most important. The first aspiration is this: aspiration or yearning or longing from your heart, yearning, longing, have an aspiration, wanting to benefit, wanting to give help and support to all living beings, without any discrimination, any exception, regardless of what we have relationship, today, this lifetime, yesterday, or tomorrow. Sometimes we have good relationship to somebody, sometimes we have not good relationship. Regardless of these ups and downs with the living beings, but from our side, not taking into account that kind of relationship, but wanting to give help and support to all living beings. What kind of help and support we want to give is from their basic needs, such as food, shelter, medicine, and friendships, that we all need, and that all living beings need. Giving help and support from that kind of basic needs, but this is important, all the way up to give them help and support to experience, make them to experience fully awakened mind, make them to experience complete cessation of suffering and origin of suffering. And that aspiration is a very, very important element in the bodhicitta, the altruistic awakened mind. If you have that aspiration, then the second aspiration, in order to fulfill that, the first aspiration's goal, in order to oneself to be able to give that kind of level, so help and support to all living beings, then oneself to become, in other words, to have the skill, the strength, the determination, the dedicated heart, to have these to have the ability to give this kind of level of help and support. We need these mental qualities: skill, strength, determination, and dedicated heart. And that will have that kind of skill when ourselves become fully awakened being. And the second aspiration, wanting to become fully awakened being, the reason is not oneself to become something amazing. The reason is oneself to become awakened being, Buddha, is completely 100% in order to give help and support to others. When these two aspirations, aspiration of wanting to benefit all living beings and fulfill that aspiration, oneself wanting, the second aspiration, wanting to experience fully awakened mind, when these two aspirations are experienced within ourselves, or in other words, our minds transform into these two aspirations, then that mind is bodhicitta, fully awakened mind, the bodhicitta or altruistic awakened mind. Then you become bodhisattva. You start, as we had discussion yesterday, start to enter into the bodhisattva path. So to think, that I'm here to join the class, although going to listen on the subject, particular subject, but overall my participating the class is to at least this my present mind go move towards the transformation into altruistic awakened mind. For that reason, I'm here to join the class. So to have that sort of thing. So because of these 4 lines, as I said yesterday, captures the 2 most important mental states in the practicing the Buddha Dharma. Therefore, in the Tibetan Buddhism, the tradition is at the beginning of this kind of gathering, say these 4 lines, not just once, twice, and 3 times, in order to make sure at the beginning of the gathering, our mind is in a positive, constructive, right state of mind. So therefore, while now we are going to recite these 4 lines 3 times to people who are familiar with these 2 minds, once again bring these 2 minds right here and now, as strong as possible, as clear as possible. People who are not in the process of cultivating these 2 minds, for those people, don't feel disappointed, don't need to rush to do that, taking refuge. What is important for you is think, I'm here to listen, to contemplate, to meditate, and it may join the recitation, to recite, in order to those helpful, useful, the beneficial mental states, behavior I have, make them stronger, enhance them, promote them. On the other hand, those unhelpful, unhealthy, disturbing mental states and the behavior, unhealthy, unhelpful, disturbing in the sense of the mental states and the behavior cause pain and difficulties to myself and to others, immediately and long term. Make those minds and the behavior reduce their number, minimize their intensity, and if I can, completely to separate from my mental states, to completely eliminate from my behavior. For that purpose, I'm here to join the class. You can do that, so bring that kind of mental state, and very, very helpful. So we will say together the refuge and bodhicitta lines 3 times. Sanje Chulam Sodi Choklam La Chanju Padu Dani Yapsuchi Dali Jinso Ki Pesunamgi Dora Penche Sante Lupasho Sanje Chulam Sodi Choklam La Chanju Padu Dani Yapsuchi Dali Jinso Ki Pesunamgi Dora Penche Sante Lupasho Sanje Chulam Sodi Choklam La Chanju Padu Dani Yapsuchi Dali Jinso Ki Pesunamgi Dora Penche Sante Lupasho. I will do a short silent meditation. During this silent meditation, what we should be doing is this: to make sure that our mind is not only positive, constructive, but also it is right here and now, at this place, with this body, and be fully alert, fully aware to the present moment. That kind of mental state is very, very helpful for the class. So for that purpose, we'll do this short silent meditation. And I usually suggest to the people, follow these 3 steps. The first step is to find a right, comfortable body posture, sitting posture. Sitting posture which creates the condition, the causes that your mind to come, rest and raise the awareness. The second step is to choose an object, such as your natural breathing or image of Buddha. Whatever object suits you, choose that object. And make that object very, very clear to your mind. But do not exaggerate, do not, do not exaggerate, and make that object very, very clear to your mind. Then the third stage is when the chosen object is very, very clear to your mind, such as your breathing or the image of Buddha or any other object. When the object is very clear to your mind, then the third stage is the actual meditation. That is very simply placing your mind, your entire mind, on the chosen object. If it is breathing, placing your entire mind on the breathing, but without making any judgment, such as saying it is shallow, it is fast, it is I'm unable to breathe properly. Not all those judgments. Also, not any interpretation, any even giving any label, good or bad, comfortable or uncomfortable, free from all the conceptual thoughts. Very simply place your mind on the chosen object, then raise the pure awareness. pure awareness in the sense of your mind is with that object and be with that object, but fully aware of the object as it is, but without any conceptual thought. And that kind of mental state is very, very helpful. So for that purpose, we'll do this short silent meditation. Oh yeah, make yourself comfortable. Today I did at Tibetan tradition. As you know, the Tibetan Buddhism has a reputation of spending long time for the preparation. And sometimes, when the preparation finished, actually even is finished. So that's almost it's going to happen in today's class. But nevertheless, I did this deliberately, very deliberately, because these two minds, the refuge mind taking refuge and the altruistic awakened mind, these two minds are very, very, the important states of mind to learn. People who are already taking refuge, to learn how can make these two minds deeper, stronger, more profound. People who are interested in taking refuge, that means to become Buddhist, learn, what is going for refuge in Buddhism? What is this bodhicitta, altruistic awakened mind? Learn them as much as you can, as detailed as you can, as thorough as you can. And also people who are not interested to become Buddhist, but also interested in what involves in the Buddhist path. If you're interested in that area, again, learning these two minds are very, very important. And in other words, in certain extents, if we learn these two minds, if we know these two minds, mind going for refuge, that captures in general entire Buddhist practices. If we learn going for refuge properly, in there, one way or another, entire Buddhist, the general Buddhist teachings and practices are there within that. And if you learn the bodhicitta, the altruistic awakened mind, all the Mahayana Buddhist teachings are in there. It is like like this. The one Kadamba Master Geshe said like this. When I pull this paper from this corner, from one corner, entire paper moves towards me, towards this direction. If I move from this corner, although I'm pulling from one corner, the entire, the page comes towards me. And it is like that. When we learn and understand refuge properly, detailed, correctly, almost entire Buddhist teachings and practices are related to that, like a pulling from the one corner. All three corners come with that. And it is also the same if we learn the bodhicitta, the altruistic awakened mind, how that mind is cultivated, how that mind is experienced. If we learn that, all entire Mahayana Buddhist teachings will come with it, like the pulling from. So that's important. That's why I'm sure some of you know these things very clearly and very detailed. But in case if there are people, that's why I spend my time to say blah blah. So now we'll have 45 minutes until 11:45. Then we'll have what's called 15 minutes break, then come back once again at 12 and have the last session. Oh, sorry, another preparation. I'd like you to say the Herzsutra once in German. And when you say the Herzsutra, while you're reading, yesterday I sort of divided the sutra in three sections. To try to get it at, from which section. Now I'm reciting this section in the sutra, and now I'm reading this section in the sutra. While you're reading the sutra, try to bring that in your mind. Also, the first three what's called paragraphs we already went through, and while you're reading first three paragraphs, try to remember that. Try to remember some of the the explanations explained in yesterday. So read in that way. And also another important thing is remember the Buddha, the historical Buddha is here in front of us where we're reading, not in a form of statue, but as a real living being with his great love, compassion to all living beings, including yourself, and with his great what's called the wisdom. And if you are able to, also you can imagine all those great teachers, past and present great teachers, are also in front of you, around the Buddha. So create that kind of atmosphere, that kind of environment, and then read the Herzsutra together in Japanese.
Ich verneige mich vor den Lehren, wie sie Worte göttlich seiner Zeit. Der Buddha saß zusammen mit einer großen Gemeinschaft von Mönchen und einer großen Gemeinschaft von Bodhisattvas auf dem Berg Geshe. Zu dieser Zeit verweilte er in dem meditativen Gleichgewicht der Konzentration auf die Vielzahl von Phänomenen, welche tiefgründige Erscheinung genannt wird. Zur gleichen Zeit betrachtete auch der edle Bodhisattva ausschließlich die tiefgründige Praxis der Vollkommenheit von Weisheit und sah die 5 Aggregate als Lehre von innewohnender Existenz. Dann durch die Inspiration des Buddha sagte der ehrenwerte Shariputra zu dem edlen Bodhisattva wie sollte jedes Kind aus guter Familie üben, das die tiefgründige Praxis der Vollkommenheit von Weisheit anwenden will. Da sagte er, der edle Bodhisattva sagte zu dem ehrenwerten Shariputra, jeder Sohn und jede Tochter aus guter Familie, die die tiefgründige Praxis der Vollkommenheit von Weisheit anwenden wollen, sollten folgende Ansicht annehmen. Sie sollten auch die 5 Aggregate sehr korrekt und nachdrücklich als Lehre von innewohnender Natur ansehen. Form ist Lehr, Leerheit ist Form. Leerheit ist nichts anderes als Form und Form ist auch nichts anderes als Leerheit. Ebenso sind Entwicklung, Erkennen, gestaltende Faktoren und auch Bewusstsein Leer. Shariputra, so sind alle Phänomene Leerheit. Sie haben keine Kennzeichnung. Sie sind unerschaffen, nicht beendet, ohne Verunreinigung, nicht frei von Verunreinigung, ohne Verringerung und ohne Vervollständigung. Shariputra, daher gibt es in der Leerheit keine Form, keine Entwicklung, keine Erkennen, keine gestaltenden Faktoren, kein Bewusstsein. Kein Auge, kein Ohr, keine Nase, keine Zunge, keinen Körper, keinen Geist, keine Form, keinen Ton, kein Geruch, keinen Geschmack, nichts Tastbares und keine Phänomene. Angefangen von der Nicht-Existenz der Sphäre der Augen bis hin zur Nicht-Existenz der Sphäre des Geistes und weiter bis hin zur Sphäre des geistigen Hauptbewusstseins existiert auch nichts. Angefangen von der Nicht-Existenz von Unwissenheit und der Nicht-Existenz von der Beendigung von Unwissenheit bis hin zu der Nicht-Existenz von Alter und Tod und der Beendigung von Alter und Tod existiert auch nichts. Genauso gibt es weder Leid, Ursache, Beendigung mir und haben keine geistige Verdunkelung und keine Angst. Das Falsche gänzlich zurücklassen, gelangen sie letztendlich über das Heilen hinaus. Alle Buddhas, die in den 3 Zeiten verweilen, verlassen sich ebenfalls auf die Vollkommenheit der Weisheit und erreichen in unübertrefflicher, vollständiger Erleuchtung und vollkommenen Burschenschaft. Deshalb das Mantra der Vollkommenheit von Weisheit, das Mantra großen Wissens, das unübertroffene Mantra, das Mantra, das dem gleicht, was ohne Gleichen ist, das Mantra, das alle Leiden vollständig stillt, das untrüglich und daher als wahr zu bezeichnen ist. Das Mantra der Vollkommenheit von Weisheit ist verkündet. Hayaya Om Gate Gate Bharagate Bharasamgate Bodhisoha. Shariputra, sagte der Bodhisattva Mahasattva, auf diese Weise soll man sich in der tiefgründigen Praxis der Vollkommenheit von Weisheit üben. Dann erhob sich der Buddha aus jener Konzentration und ließ dem edlen Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara sein Lob zukommen. Gut, du Sohn guter Familie, gut. So wie du es dargelegt hast, sollte man die Vollkommenheit der Weisheit üben und es wird auch die Tathagatas erfreuen. Nachdem der Buddha diese Worte gesprochen hatte, freute sich der ehrenwerte Shalapati-Putra, der edle Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, der transzendentale Fürst des Sankti-Gefolge und die Welt der Götter, Menschen, Halbgötter und sich und Duft der Herren Wesen und priesen die Worte des Buddha.
Oh yeah, thank you. Now, on this session, first I would like to start from the looking at the paragraph which the saying there's no form, no feeling, no discrimination. That paragraph. Starting from there, which we yesterday started to look at, that is the list. That is the list of, or the categories of phenomena. Categories of phenomena, which I want to go a little bit further. Yesterday we have seen four categories. The first category is the aggregate, 5 aggregates. 5 aggregates. In here, what I'm doing is I'm giving you homework, because more detailed discussion in this will come my next visit in October. But I'm preparing you to do some work, so that's why I'm not reading the 2 what you call the paragraphs, jumping to the further. So that is important. So yesterday we looking at the paragraphs which start from saying the Shariputra, therefore in emptiness there is no form, no feeling. Start from there, we are looking at the categories of the phenomena. So we have seen the category, first category is 5 aggregates. The second category is starting from saying no I, 6 sense power or 6 sources, you can say, 6 sense powers. Then the third category is the what's called no visual form, sound. That's the 6 objects. Then the next category is starting saying there's no I element, so on up to including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. And that is the fourth category. Fourth category. And that is yesterday. I think I may have said a little bit wrong term. I want to make a little bit correction. That is the consciousness category. Consciousness category. So, 4 categories we have seen yesterday. 5 aggregates category, 5 aggregates. In there are 5. What's called sense. Second category is 6 sense power, or the source, 6 sources. And the third category, 6 objects. And the fourth category, 6 consciousnesses. So we have seen 4 categories. 4 categories. Very, very important. In these categories, in these 4 categories, everything here, everything we have got here, the physical and mental. Mental objects, the mind themselves, everything is included. Everything is included. And those are the now I want to go a little bit further, which we haven't done yesterday. The line which starting in English, it says this: there's no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, so on up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging of death. So these lines is another category, the 5th category, which is the 4 Noble Truths. 4 Noble Truths. 4 Noble Truths. Saying that there's no ignorance and no extinction of ignorance. I'm jumping. Not the 4 Noble Truths. The 12 dependent origination category. 12 dependent origination category. And this is in this there are 2 sort of like this. The first line it says this, isn't it? No ignorance. Now leave the no first. Just look at the ignorance. Then soon after ignorance, it says no extinction of ignorance. Delete the no, but look at the extinction of ignorance. So relation to the ignorance here explain 2 things, isn't it? First saying ignorance, then saying extinction of ignorance. Yeah. Then it carries on saying including no aging and death. Now leave it for time being, forget the no, bring the aging and death. Then same time that line it says no extinction of death, aging, no extinction of aging and death. And what happened there? Here is 12 links of dependent origination. 12 links of dependent origination. The first out of 12, first is ignorance. Last 12th one is aging and death.
So is that this?
Yes, that is this round. Yeah.
I don't understand.
Yes. 12 links of dependent origination. Okay. It is like saying like that. If you have a line 12 people, then I'll say, okay, you 12, from the Venerable Nun to end you, come here. And that includes all the between these 2. And that's how sometimes in the text, how the list mention the beginning of the list and the end of the list. That means include all. Now this is interesting. It explained first no ignorance. Now leave it no, because no has a different connotation, different meaning, which we'll look at later. But ignorance, then that follows the term saying, and there's no extinction of ignorance. Extinction, exhaustion, cessation of ignorance. They all are same meaning. Now leave it no, again same, but think about extinction of ignorance. So that it explained 2. Now the 12 links of dependent origination can be understood, can be studied, can be learned, can be experienced in two ways. The first way is what we call forward order. Forward order, it means there's a ignorance, therefore there's a karma, the second name. There's a karma, therefore there's a consciousness. There's a consciousness, there's a fourth one, then fifth one, sixth one, seventh one, follow like that. That is what we call the forward order. Like if you have a garden, then you have a seeds in your garden shade to plant flowers, vegetables. When you plant seeds in the garden, then plant grows. When you look after, they grow further and further. And the spring or the summer or the autumn, you have the fruits, flowers, vegetables, and so on and so forth. That kind of order is what it is called forward order. Saying, because this is there, this will come. This is there, this is there. This will come. And that order is happening right here and now within us. That's why we are going round and round and round. Because that order is keep turning, keep running, without any sort of stop. 12 links of dependent origination. But another order is not happening right now. There's a possibility. The possibility of the next order, the second order, is this: extinction of ignorance. When the ignorance ceases, stop. When the ignorance stops, the second link, the karma, will stop. When karma stops, the third will stop. The third stop, go, and the last link, death and aging and death, will stop. And that is technically it is called reverse order. Reverse order. Okay? And that is another category. 12 links of dependent origination in the forward order and the reverse order. Then, if you look at in your book, similarly, this is interesting one. Similarly, there's no suffering, origin, cessation, and path. There's no, so this is the Four Noble Truths. Similarly, why the word similarly is used? Because 12 links of dependent origination. 12 links of dependent origination is elaborate form of explaining the Four Noble Truths. The teachings on 12 links of dependent origination, the forward order and the reverse order, is the elaboration form of teachings on the Four Noble Truths. So that's why the term similarly, there's no suffering, but in this case, leave it to know the suffering, origination of suffering, cessation of suffering and origination of suffering, and path which leads to that cessation. That is the next category, and the path, the category of Four Noble Truths. Then there's some sort of conclusion. It says, there's no exalted wisdom and no attainment, and also no non-attainment. And this is the category, the last category, saying that the remaining, the Buddhist spiritual paths, such as, for example, going for refuge, taking refuge, cultivating the foundation of mindfulness, and going through all the different Buddhist paths. So that's what here it says, no exalted wisdom exalted wisdom. Exalted wisdom refers to, within these different spiritual paths, a particular wisdom, that is wisdom realizing emptiness. It is same, perfection of wisdom, which we have seen earlier. Or, the different terms are used. Exalted wisdom is exactly the same. Use the different term. Wisdom realizing emptiness. The exalted wisdom. It's saying no exalted wisdom and no attainment. So attainment here, the list in the attainment, there are two kinds of attainment that we can experience, that we can achieve. Two kinds of attainment is this: liberation and enlightenment. From the Mahayana's point of view, I want to say this, from the Mahayana's point of view. From the Theravadan teachings point of view, there's only one attainment. Whether you use term liberation or enlightenment is the same, no difference. But according to the Mahayana teachings, liberation means you are free from this bondage, the bondage of in the suffering and origin of suffering. But even when you are free from the suffering or the samsara, the cyclic of existence, that doesn't mean you are fully awakened being. Although you are free from samsara, but that doesn't mean you are fully awakened being. So therefore, the attainment in the Mahayana teachings, two types. Liberation, that means free from samsara, and further development, becoming fully awakened being, enlightenment. But from the Theravadan teachings, there's no difference. If you're liberated from samsara, that is the end. There's nothing to go any further. That's the end. So in terms of attainment, then it says there's no non-attainment. That we don't need the explanation. So look at the categories now. Look at the categories. Aggregates, sense powers, objects, consciousness, 12 links of dependent origination, forward order, reverse order, Four Noble Truths, then the path, exalted wisdom, path, attainment. Now this category is put together like this. People who are interested in the Buddhist path. People who are interested in the Buddhist path, it is extremely useful and helpful to look at these categories. You will have your full lifetime job in these categories. Full lifetime. But very, very helpful. It is not like looking at the supermarket shelves, going through all those what on the shelves. But it is more looking inward. Here, what's there? And when you look at in here, within ourselves, what's here, the first four categories are there to all living beings. All living beings have these the first four categories. Then, when you start to look at the 12 links of dependent origination, forward and reverse order, then it is more to the people who are interested in the process of the liberation, starting to see, okay, how I should, depart, or how I should start my journey for the liberation. And then starts, I'm here in samsara because these 12 links. But if I reverse the 12 links, I will be free from samsara. And that is the forward and reverse order, very, very helpful. So from that category, then it is more interested to the people who are seriously taking the journey, spiritual journey. Because for them, it is very, very important to have a clear, sort of strategy where I am and where I'm going to go and how I'm going to go from here to there. So that's why these remaining categories after the what you call the six consciousnesses, which category which start category which start 12 links of dependent origination. From there, it is more for the people who are interested in the spiritual path. And that from there you need to look at. Okay. Now, what I would like to say to you is this. Really, I'm sure in German, there are many books. If not, for example, the Alex Berzon's website. You look at Alex Berzon's website. He in his website there are many good explanations in these categories. Good to look at these categories, because my next visit, then I'm going to go a little bit detailed, particularly the 5 aggregates. As I said yesterday, to understand the emptiness in the sense of to understand the things and events as they are. Things and events as they are. Or in other words, to understand not just their conventional reality, the truth, but also their ultimate reality, the truth. To understand that, we need to go through these lists. There might be different ways to look at from the Western scientist point of view. What is here? Body, mind, whatever. But here we want to look at from the Buddhist point of view. You can combine, you can bring your Western understanding, what is here, but it also have the Eastern traditional explanation. Maybe these two can be, complement each other. Maybe sometimes there might be some conflict. When the conflict is there, leave it time being. But wherever there's some, can support each other. Support in the sense of helps to understand the other side more, precise or clearer. Do that. Of course, then when it comes to the 12 links of dependent origination, there won't be very much to contribute from the Western science point of view. Maybe there might be 1 or 2 points here and there, but not as a structure. But the first 4 categories, 5 aggregates, 6 sense power, 6 objects, 6 consciousnesses, you can bring lots of understanding from the Western, the education or the knowledge. So, okay. Therefore, I'm going. Why the reason I go through this is that you to prepare for my next visit. Now, going back to our main. You have a question?
Yes, please. On the last category.
Okay.
I'm not sure if there's the 7th category, remaining spiritual path.
Sorry?
The last category.
Okay. After the 4 noble truths.
Yes.
After the 4 noble truths, you can put it, say, categories of the path,
Yeah.
when it said exalted wisdom,
Yeah.
and the categories of the attainment.
So there are two.
Two.
So there are 8 categories.
8 categories. You can
Thank
put
you.
that way. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Now I want to go back to the main sutra where we started, where we jumped from there. That is from the verse, not verse, from the what you call the paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4. From the paragraph 4. From paragraph 4, where it starts saying, he said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Aya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. So that means that when the Shariputra asked the question to Avalokiteshvara, how should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of profound perfection of wisdom, then now our today's the discussion is the next paragraph, which saying, he said that the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Aya Avalokiteshvara is said this to the Venerable Shariputra. So now the answer by the Shariputra, by the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of profound perfection of wisdom should look upon like this, correctly and repeatedly. Behold, those 5 aggregates also are empty of inherent nature. Now, stop. This, as I said yesterday, Avalokiteshvara answer that to Shariputra question in a two versions. Short version and one longer version. And this paragraph, which end of the paragraph, Avalokiteshvara have given the short version. The short version is this. He said, those 5 aggregate also empty of inherent nature. That's the short version answer to the questions of Shariputra. The longer version is the next paragraph. Next paragraph where it says, form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form, form is also not other than emptiness. In other words, in the longer version of the answer by the Avalokiteshvara, there are 2 sentences. 2 sentences are this. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. That's the first sentence. And the second sentence is, emptiness is not other than form, form is also not other than emptiness. So in these 2 sentences, the Avalokiteshvara given the extensive answer to the Shariputra's the question. Now the Shariputra question is, how should a son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of profound perfection of wisdom? Now that is the Shariputra question. Now you are asking question. How should I, in your case you, how should I, who have a strong interest in cultivating the perfection of wisdom sutra, how should I train myself, or how should I train my mind to cultivate this profound perfection of wisdom? And that's your question. You ask to yourself, or you ask to somebody. And the answer is this. In the longer version answer is this. You should train your mind. You should train your mind to see form is empty, emptiness is form. And the other way around, on the coming, emptiness is not other than form, form is also not other than emptiness. Now form is mentioned here. Form is mentioned here. In Sanskrit, rupa. In Tibetan, so. Form, Rupa, Sukh. Rupa, Sukh, or the form in English, it is the, out of these categories, do you remember? These categories where we are going to learn next my visit. Out of these 8 or 6 or 7, 8 categories, form is the first. You know, the first category is what? Aggregates. In that category, how many aggregates are there? 5. Out of 5, first one is form. So that is why form is mentioned here. Otherwise you can say I. Instead of form, you can just put I. I is empty. No, emptiness is I. The emptiness is not other than I. I is also not other than emptiness, if you want to put I. Or if you want to put this table, you can put exactly the same. You know, the table is empty. Emptiness is table. Emptiness is not other than the table. Table is not other than, and also not other than the emptiness. Now, in that case, you can put this instead of form, every existent things. Every existent things you can put in the, instead of form, put that, then do the analysis. That is the activity. That is the activity. That's why in the sutra, after these 2 sentences, here, you know, the Avalokiteshvara said, in the same way, feeling, discrimination, blah blah, blah blah, blah blah, all the way up to end of the list, you can go like that. End of the list. And that is the meditation we need to do. Now I want to start to talk a little bit on emptiness. On emptiness. That is now that we need to look at. Because I haven't said anything about emptiness, although we have come across several times saying empty of inherent nature in the second verse. You know, all those things. So we have to look at empty of inherent nature. We have to look at emptiness. We have to look at emptiness. Now, there are 2, and I'm sure there might be many different approaches to learn, to understand emptiness. My usual, you know, the explanation on this subject, on emptiness, in looking from the 2 different angles. The first angle is, I briefly mentioned yesterday, very briefly mentioned yesterday. You may manage to hold, you know, manage to capture that or not, I don't know, but I briefly mentioned. My first approach is this. Going through one by one those lists, checking in here, going through this one by one, from the form, the first out of those long lists, the first one, form aggregates, to going all the way up to my last, which is the attainment, which I want to attain. Going through one by one, what is there as a form? What is there as a feeling? What is there as a discrimination? What is there as a consciousness? Going through one by one, then going all the way end. What is there attainment which I want to attain? What is, you know, as an attainment, what is there? Going through. Like as I said yesterday, you know, or if you have a pocket, what's in my pocket? Oh, 1 tissue, 2 tissue, 3 tissue, because I have hay fever. Including some preparation for hay fever, for eye drops. What's there? Nothing, empty. Isn't empty. There's one way, that's the one way to understand what is there as the things and events. If we understand that way, what that will help? That will help to reduce our misinterpretation. What is there? If I think, there's something, a nice chocolate, but not there. When I went through, one by one, what's in my pocket, there's no chocolate. And that's my misinterpretation of thinking there's a chocolate. And that's the one way to look at what is there. Another way of looking at is what is not there. Look at it from that angle. What's not there? And in many of the interpretation, particularly in the Mahayanas, the way of what's called the explanation on emptiness is looking from this angle. What is not there? But both will take us, if we do it properly, both will take us to understand things and events as they are. Okay? Now, we'll have 15 minutes break now.